Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a good weekend. I wanted to get this out to you today because I think we've got some interesting stuff to talk about this week. So let's get started. So as you know, this week you guys finished the e-commerce assignment, and now we're starting on the criminal justice assignment. And I think you're going to like the assignment that I came up with. I think it's really interesting and useful, and a good chance for you to dig around and figure some things out, make decisions, come up with your own approach to things, and be creative. And of course, that's what I want you to do. So the data set that we're going to be using is the Chicago crime data set. And you can see that in the Chicago crime data set, you can just look at, this is the preview mode, so we can see the first 50 records in the table, of which there's, what is that, like 8 million? Just plenty, I think. And I think that's kind of interesting. So, we've got a unique key associated with each line in this data set, a case number, and a date, block, an ICUR. Oh no, what could that mean? A primary type, a description, a location description, arrest, whether it's domestic or not, what police beat it's part of, what district the crime happened in, the ward, the community area, the FBI code, the X coordinate, Y coordinate, the year, and updated on. And I think that's about it. Latitude, longitude, and location. Bunch of fields in here. Some of them are going to be interesting to us, and some of them are not. And so that's where the interesting part about this assignment is going to come from, is that you're going to have to figure out what these different fields mean and how they relate to each other. Well, before you can do that, you really need to understand something about criminal justice. And there's tons of all over the country, police departments, law enforcement agencies, LEAs, report crime. And so the question is, can we have any common way to report crime? Because we want to compare. We want to compare crime in big cities to crime in rural areas. We want to compare crime in Los Angeles to crime in Chicago to crime in New York. We want to compare the criminal, the amount and the types of crime in different parts of the country. And so we need common reporting requirements for all that stuff. So you're going to have to dig in and get used to all this, because this is the kind of information that every city, every jurisdiction wants to know. So how do we do that? Well, how is crime measured in the U.S.? And I think I linked to all of these. If not, you can see the URL. It's not very complex. But the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, turns out to be the lead as the common federal agency that can come up with ways to commonly describe crime. And they do that in a number of different ways. And so you can read through all of this to get a feel for it. Through things like the Uniform Crime Reporting and UCR. Oh, by the way, tons of different abbreviations. You're going to have to get used to that. The Crime Data Explorer, crime in the United States. There's lots of different reports out there that are pretty interesting and get at this whole idea. Oh, by the way, don't those emblems seem kind of, manly? I don't know. But anyhow, so crime in the United States, and we gotta scroll down here a little bit. Come on, little feller. This one. the National Incident-Based Reporting System. This one turns out to be a really important part of what we're doing here, mostly because it's a relatively new way to report crime. You'll see this in the documentation, in that they'll talk about the hierarchical approach to reporting crime versus the event-based way to report crime. Hierarchical way to report crime is that you looked at an incident or a single crime occurrence, as it says here, and then you would keep track of that incident or occurrence based on the highest crime that was committed as part of this occurrence. And so, murder would be the top, and I don't know what the rest of the hierarchy was, but think of the worst crime, and that would be the occurrence of crime. Single occurrence of crime would be coded as a murder, instead of a murder along with, kidnapping and auto theft and all that other stuff. It would just be coded as a murder. So NIBRS comes along and says, well, let's change that. And so now they use an event-based, incident-based reporting system that talks about all of the crimes that can be associated with one single crime occurrence. But that's not really true, because, we're database people. We know what that means. That means a separate table where we, keep track of one-to-many relationship between the crime occurrence and the types of crime that were part of this. So that's how you do that. So what NIBRS does is that it limits the number of types of crime that can be associated with a single crime occurrence to 10. And, once again, as database people, we know what that means. They've just got 10 separate instances in there. They've broken all the rules of normalization. They've, come up with a lousy database design, but it kind of fits the needs of the crime reporting agencies. And of course, what do we know about crime reporting? So, not too much. There's other databases that are out there. Law enforcement officers killed and assaulted. We're not going to be using that one. And you can see that this goes back, I think it said in the description that different bureaus or whatever have been reporting crime since the 1930s. So this goes back a long ways. Hate crime statistics. And what else have we got? I think there's one more. National Use of Force Data Collection. So interesting, but that's what we need, and this is all good for us to keep track of, because the other thing that you'll get out of this is that it will show you the types of reports that are done. And that builds context around your work to help you to know what are my options, how do other people report crime, what does that look like? And so, we're getting closer to Chicago here, so now we have the Illinois State Police Uniform Crime Reporting, ICUR. Write that down, ICUR. We've already seen it, and we're going to be using that. And so, there are data tables in here which turn out to be important for us. See if it comes up. Crime data tables. And so you can find out, you can get these lists of things. So, we need to know what those columns mean. And there was one in there that was really interesting. It was ICUR. And so we need to find out about that ICUR and what does that actually mean. I think it's in here. You'll be able to find it. If you don't, I've got it as a .csv file, and I'll probably just post that. But anyhow. And then, so we have other context building things around here. So, one good way to figure out how a data set should be used and what the fields mean is to look at the reporting manual, the user's manual for this thing. Now, this one is designed, to help regular cops format things correctly and add them to the incident NIBRS system. And so, that all of the information here this is set up to teach regular cops how to use the system. No, that's okay. That's good. Now we're getting closer. Chicago Police Department Uniform Crime Reporting Codes. This is what I was looking for before, and this one has has your ability to download a report about all of these things. So let's see. Let me just bring it up on here. That's easier. So what's the ICUR? Come on, little fella, you can do it. ICUR is a table that shows you what incidents mean. And so here's your ICUR code, and then here's the primary description, a secondary description. So you'll see that there's a lot of homicides, but some of them relate to reckless homicide, involuntary manslaughter. And involuntary manslaughter is if you're in a car accident and you are driving the car that kills somebody. You may be charged with involuntary manslaughter. You didn't mean to do it. It happened, but you're still in trouble. So involuntary manslaughter, first-degree murder, second-degree murder, and these all have different ICUR codes. And those ICUR codes are going to be something that we're interested in. Now, the other thing that they have is this code over here, this index code. I'm not saying it's something that you should use, but it's out there. And what you'll notice is that the index codes, and I can't remember what the code means, N versus I, it's kind of like the, did they mean to do it or not? And the indexed, the I's are ones where people kind of meant to do it. And I think the N's are kind of like they didn't mean to do it. You can look at that, you can think about it, you can figure out if that's something worthwhile. There's 410 rows in this data set, and you'll see in a second that this may be a really interesting table for you to have. So let's get rid of this guy and go back into here. Now, our Chicago data, crime data, is used by lots of people. And in fact, there's a bunch of examples out there that you can look through, and people are using GitHub for this these days, and there's lots of interesting stuff in here, explanations, examples that you could work through if you wanted to. But the one that I found most useful is this one. Come on. I clicked through all these tabs this morning to try and make it so they'd come up more quickly. Apparently it didn't work very well. So this one, written by Pujan Malavia, is really good. and he talks, I don't know if Pujan is he, but they talk a lot about, how they actually, a lot about the data itself, what it all means, how it works, and give you some really good background and great links about things like, how do you figure out the Chicago maps and Chicago government and all those kind of things. Pujan has done a great job doing that in here. So I think this will be a really useful tool for you to look at. And so, and I'm pretty sure I linked to that one too. One of the things you're going to have to look at is the government in Chicago. And the government of Chicago is broken up into community areas and wards and not boroughs. I said boroughs in class, but not boroughs. But, there's different ways that the city of Chicago is divided up, and you're going to have to get used to working with that. And so you'll learn something about Chicago. And, public safety information in Chicago. There's lots of this information that's out there. And then this is my last one. Oh, and then another thing that I talk about in the question is this whole notion of culture of lawlessness. And this has been around for a while. Rudy Giuliani, believe it or not, made a big deal out of this back when he was the mayor of New York. And what he did was he said, well, people don't like to live in places with high crime. So how do you lower the crime? And what his approach was that he said, well, let's go after the small crimes that bother people and create this culture of kind of lawlessness. So, graffiti and broken windows and those kind of things. He said those were the things that you had to fix first before you could lower overall crime rates. And so I borrowed from that description the idea of culture of lawlessness in our assignment here. So anyhow, so I gave you a link to this article to kind of get you headed in the direction of what I'm talking about here. Let's go to the actual assignment. Okay, oops, I gotta close that. Oh, come on. Isn't this slow? Amazing. Come on. And this is the wrong Word doc also. All right, let's get rid of that one. And okay, I messed up. Now I have to open it. I'm going to pause you guys. Okay, so here's your assignment, Lab 3 Chicago Crime. I'll just read this for you, and then I'll make comments on it as we go. You've been contracted to develop an evaluation of the Chicago real estate market for an international property development company. So some company out there in another part of the world wants to do development in Chicago. The company is thinking about a major investment in a new apartment community in the Chicago area, but is concerned that a culture of lawlessness in the area. Chicago used to get a lot of bad press. It's like, I think it was during COVID, about all the murders and everything. The crime rate has gone way down, but somebody outside of the country, outside of the U.S., may not know that. And so, a big company thinking about investing lots of money in the Chicago area might say, yeah, but we're not going to build our apartment community in some place where crime is rampant and, bad things happen all the time. That's what this is about. So let's see. But is concerned that a culture of lawlessness in the area of the new development will frighten away purchasers or tenants, whichever you want to call it. Doesn't matter. Your job is to develop a list of 5 city council wards, and you'll find out what that means, that combine two things: proximity to the urban core of Chicago, so that people can go to work in downtown Chicago, and a lower level of crime over the last 3 years. Those two things. For each of your recommended wards, they would like a description of real estate for sale with a range of property values. They would also like a short biography of the city council representative, images of representative properties in the area so they can get a feel for, what other properties are in the area. Are they all run-down single-family houses, or are they all upscale, big steel concrete apartment buildings? List of images, short biography of city council representative. Images of representative properties would be highly beneficial for the decision making, as well as major employers in the area. So, where are these tenants or purchasers going to work that they would want to live in this apartment? Are there, does IBM have a facility there, or, Cisco or Google or something like that? So you'd get these rich tech folks, or is it more, small scale shops and things where you would get a different clientele, because you'd have to, build a different set of apartments for those two different demographic groups. So that's the assignment. I'm going to give you a bunch of context and discussion here also, because I know this is weird stuff and complicated. So, come on. All right, so contents and discussion. This is not a simple question. I know that. And it's not a straightforward question. It's nebulous. You're going to have to think about it. There's going to be some people who recommend these words, other people recommend these words. There's no one right answer. You're going to have to figure this out. So that's what I love about the question, by the way. So it's not a simple question, but if you read it carefully, it can become more doable. There are 3 parts to this question. First part of the question will drive your selection of wards and can come from the Chicago crime data set in BigQuery. To develop a list of recommended wards, you have to come up with a way to define culture of lawlessness in a way that makes sense with the data. Well, there are 410 IUCR codes that the City of Chicago Police Department uses in the Chicago crime data set. And I give you a link to that. Which of these do you consider to represent a culture of lawlessness? Should some crimes be weighed more heavily than others? If one ward has 5 homicides, but another has 10 auto thefts, which has a worse culture of lawlessness? For that, you're going to have to develop your own rationale first for how you figure out which one's worse. And you're going to have to implement that through the data. I mean, you could do something goofy, like go through the list of 410 ICUR codes and say, this 350 represent culture of lawlessness, but this 60 don't. That seems a little goofy, but you could think about that, and you're going to have to figure this out and think about all those different crimes and stuff. You've got Google. I don't need to define what those different crimes are in there, but you need to figure that out. Which is worse, prostitution or homicide? It all depends, and it has an impact on where people want to live, and that that impact is very real and needs to be part of your discussion. So New York City went through a period of lawlessness that was very difficult for its citizens. They were able to emerge from this through the combined efforts of the entire city government. For more background, and I point you toward that article that I showed you. Okay. Pause this. Okay, the second factor that you need to weigh is proximity to the Chicago urban core. So, who's closer to the downtown area? If one ward is closer but doesn't have a major freeway to get there, and another is farther, as the crow flies, which is a English expression that just means in a straight line. So not over roads or stuff. It's just, this, if you look at a map, this one's further away than from the urban core. And what does urban core mean anyhow? Well, it means downtown, but what part of downtown? Chicago's downtown isn't huge, but it's not small either. So you're going to have to think about how to measure that and how to organize that. Let's see, so one has a major freeway, which has better proximity. Also, public transport is important for many urban dwellers. What public transport links do the wards have? If one's on a subway line and the other one has just city buses, which one is closer, has greater proximity to the urban core? You have to think about that. Out of these first two parts of the question come your wards. So combination of crimes and proximity. That's how you determine your wards. The next part of the question is to build profiles of the wards that will be used to compare the selected wards. How do you compare these guys? All right, some points to be made in comparing the wards relate to the types of jobs available in the wards and maybe cultural amenities. Does, if one ward, has great employers, but another one has an art gallery, which is better? You have to think about that. What sets apart these wards that might make one more popular for tenants than another? Remember, this is for a company that wants to build big apartment or, condo buildings, whatever, and they want to find wards that are better, will attract more people. And then finally, before a major real estate project can begin, there are many permits and red tape that needs to be overcome. To do this, an outside company would like to have an idea about the ward representative and their background in working with private industry. Your input is highly desired. So the local government official would help any big company that wanted to make a big investment in their ward, or at least they might. Some might say, well, why are you building this huge skyscraper? That's not what we need in our ward. We need some other kind of more affordable housing rather than fancy luxury apartments. That needs to be part of your discussion. So that's the basic question. And now a little bit about the final deliverable. The deliverable for this project will most likely start out with a short discussion of your methodology. How you define culture of lawlessness is a big part of this. And then how you use that different definition in your query to find wards of interest around the urban core. I probably should have put quotations around urban core. You'll then address each of your recommended wards from perspectives of transportation, pricing, representation, and desirability. Different teams will come up with different recommendations, but there's no right or wrong answer. I don't expect 50 pages, 5 or 6, combining graphic elements and text is fine. So you might, and that doesn't need to be just graphic elements and text. you may stick a picture of the ward representative in there, or you may stick pictures of the other real estate in the ward to build context around those wards. So, and then, you know, pictures of the downtown area, or pictures of the, you know, the available properties that could be purchased, or, you know, whatever you want. Remember, you've got Zillow for real estate stuff. You've got, you know, lots of different ways to Google to find out information about Chicago city government. There's tons of stuff that you can do out there. So I hope that you find this interesting, and let me know if you have any questions. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.